Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on SCEDP application process. We are excited to be hosting a series of webinars for folks here in South Carolina to learn more about how they can stay connected in their lives. This webinar is the third in a webinar series that EDP has been hosting. And the first was a joint webinar with the South Carolina Assistive Technology Program and EDP to talk about the communications options in the state, and communications programs. And the second was about the equipment that is offered through the equipment distribution program. And then today's is about the application process to get that equipment. So just wanted to go through a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. We are recording the meeting, so we will have this recording be available after the webinar ends, as well as the slides from the presentation. There is a chat box where if you do have questions, feel free to put those questions in there as we're going through the presentations. And we will get to those, at that time, if they're relevant to what we're talking about before we move on to the next topic, or if not, at the very end of the presentation. Everyone did enter in on mute, so please do remain on mute throughout the presentation. There will be an opportunity to unmute at the end for questions. As well as everyone's video was off, and we do ask that you keep your video off because we do have an interpreter for today's webinar. So the interpreter is a spotlight video you should see on your screen if you do need interpreting for the webinar. Captioning is also available, so you can find the captions in your Zoom ribbon if those are not already showing up on your screen. You can look for the closed caption icon to be able to turn those on. And so with that, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Landon Masters, and I'm the Community Outreach and Communications Manager for the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff, or ORS. And the ORS is the agency that administers the South Carolina Equipment Distribution Program, or SCEDP. So ORS does a lot of different things in our utility regulation. So we're talking about representing the public interest of consumers in electric and natural gas cases, as well as some transportation carriers, water, wastewater, and also telecommunications. The EDP program is housed within our telecommunications office and does a great job of helping to get equipment into the hands of those that really need it here in our state. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Casey Sims, who is going to give a very brief overview of EDP and then jump right in to the application process. As I mentioned, please put those questions in the chat throughout and we will get those answered for you. Take it away, Casey.
Thank you, Landon. Welcome everyone to our third and final webinar in this series that we have been putting on. This one will be covering our application process. And I know that we have gotten a lot of questions about the application process in the past two webinars that we have done. So I'm hoping today that we can answer a lot of questions. As Landon mentioned, the first webinar was on basically an overview of our program. And then we also partnered with the South Carolina Assistive Technology Program. And they were in that one as well. Our second webinar was on equipment options. And then today we're going to cover the application process. So basically how you go about getting pieces of equipment from our program. So thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here with us for the next little bit. So with that, I'm going to get started. As Landon mentioned, we are housed in the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff. My role here is that I do outreach for this program, which is called SCEDP. Some know us as the South Carolina Equipment Distribution Program. So I do outreach. I do a lot of speaking about the program. I travel throughout the state and basically bring awareness to our program and what we do. And then I also go to a lot of events around the state of South Carolina, which we all know due to COVID-19, there aren't that many events going on right now. So we have been putting on webinars. And so we are going to get started with the application process and how to go about getting pieces of equipment. So for starters, to qualify for our program, one must have a hearing or speech challenge that they live with, live in the state of South Carolina, and have active phone service. So if you're looking at your screen, one who would qualify would meet any of these bulleted items, basically living with any type of hearing loss. So whether you're completely deaf, you are just hard of hearing, you have some vision loss with your hearing loss, we have pieces of equipment that will assist with all of that. So to qualify, you do have to have one of those, though. You do have to have hearing loss or speech challenge that you do live with. Next slide. So to get your equipment from our program, that is no cost. It's not going to cost you anything. The first step would be that you choose a product. We have a different range of products to choose from. They range from different types of phones. We have an iPad. We have alerting devices. So you do get to choose your product. You need to fill out the application, which we're going to talk about today and dive into a little bit more. You do have to have a professional certify the application. This would be a doctor or an audiologist or speech language pathologist certifying that yes, you do have hearing loss or speech challenge. And then you also need to have a copy of your ID or phone bill that you would send in to us. And then once you have all of that together, you send it into our office. And then we begin to process the application. Next slide. All right, so step one is to choose your product. Okay, and as I mentioned, we do have a range of products, hearing and speech products. We have amplified phones, which can amplify your call, obviously giving you a louder amplification than a typical phone. We have alerting devices. These devices will alert you if someone is at the door or if your phone is ringing. So if you have trouble hearing that. We also have an iPad, a very popular item that a lot of folks order if they do have trouble, mostly with they've lost their voice, and so they use that iPad for speaking purposes, and then also for video relay purposes. If one does use sign language, they can get an iPad for that. Applicants are allowed one alerting device and one phone per household. So we do allow one device per household, and then as long as the individual remains in the state of South Carolina and needs the device, they are allowed to keep the device. Next slide. Okay, so step two is to fill in the application, and step three is to have a professional certify the application. These two steps we kind of combined here because the application is one page for the applicant and then one page for the certifier or professional who's going to sign the application. I do want to point out, and you can go ahead to the next slide, Landon, there are two types of applications that we have. So if you're looking at your screen, the one on the left is I refer to it as our regular application. you can see it says application at the top. And then the application on the right is the iPad application. So the difference between the two is the iPad application is specifically for the iPad for our program. The application that just says application across the top is for all of the other equipment that we distribute. So if you are interested in receiving, a phone from our program, you would want our regular or standard application. Or if you want an alerting device, just an alerting device, you would use our standard application. If you are applying or someone you know is applying for our iPad, you would use the application that states iPad application. I do want to, I'm focusing on this because I do want to make sure it's clear. We have in the past had applications sent in that were our regular application, but the individual wanted the iPad. And so they just wrote iPad on that application, and that will not be accepted. We have to have the correct application for the device that you're requesting. Okay, next slide, Landon. So the first application that we're going to look at would be our phone application, or the standard application, as I've called it. This application is one page. It's pretty simple. You can see the first section says applicant information. That is for, obviously, the person who is applying. That's their personal information to fill out. The guardian information is for the guardian of the applicant to fill out if needed. Obviously, if someone is under 18, they would need a guardian to sign this application. If someone has a legal guardian declared for them, they would have a guardian fill out their section. It does say if applicable, because it is not required to be filled out if the individual does not have a guardian. The next section is the product selection. And the product selection is where the individual or the applicant can select the device that they would like to receive. So if you look at the arrow, there's a black arrow on the screen, and it is showing you the product guide that we also supply with the application. The product guide matches, the numbers in the product guide match the numbers in the product section on the application. So you can actually look through the product guide, read about the specifics of the pieces of equipment, and then you can select in your application that product that you want. And then the next section is the documents that we are going to require be sent in with the application. So if you're looking at that checklist, you're going to see that you're going to have to send in a copy of your South Carolina ID, which we'll talk about a little bit later. You're going to have to send in a copy of your current phone bill. Again, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. And then, if applicable, you are going to submit proof of guardianship. Once that is all filled out, you will need to take it to your professional certifier. Next slide, please.
Casey, before we move on, I had one question.
Okay.
This is from just what I wanted to make sure that I was understanding correctly as well, and share it with everyone else. But does income, I see that is on the application, is that a qualification for the program? I know that may be a question that folks are thinking.
That is a great question. The income range is on the application. We do require that that section is filled out. However, it's not going to qualify or disqualify anyone for the program. Our program is not income-based. So that section is simply for us to collect data who uses our program. And we do ask that it be filled out, but it's not going to, like I said, qualify or disqualify anyone? Good question.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so after you have the application filled out and you've signed it, or the applicant has, you take the form to your professional certifier. This is going to be your doctor, your audiologist, or your speech language pathologist if you were getting a speech device. On this application, that might look like the electrolarynx that we distribute. So those professionals may certify this application. They do need to fill out all sections of this. That's very important to know, because incompleted certifier forms are sent back to the certifier to complete before we can approve. We do want all sections to be completed. That's why they're on there. We do need the information. And so please make sure that your certifier is signing and completing all sections. And it's not a lot of information that we require by them. It's pretty simple. So it shouldn't take them a lot of time to complete that for you. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the next slide is our iPad application. Again, the application we were just looking at is for all of the equipment we distribute except the iPad. This application is for the iPad. It says iPad application at the top, and it looks the same. It's very similar. You're going to have the applicant information at the top. You're going to have guardian information if applicable, and then you're going to have the product selection. So this is where this one differs from the other application. The iPad is going to come with either deaf, hard of hearing, or speech package. You as the applicant get to select that package that you're requesting. For deaf and hard of hearing, the package that's going to come on the iPad are going to be apps that are video relay services that the individual can use for video relay calls. And basically the individual can use this as their phone. So that's the cool thing about this iPad, is that it can be used as a phone for those who need to use a video phone. They communicate through sign language. The speech package is going to come with a communication app provided on it, referred to as AAC apps. And those can be very expensive apps. They can be, there's a wide range of them, but they can be anywhere from, non-expensive to very expensive. So we do provide one AAC app on the iPad for speech as well. And then if you look at the next section, you're going to have to provide the same documents to qualify, which would be your South Carolina ID and a copy of your phone bill, and then proof of guardianship if applicable. So then you would sign and then take to your professional certifier, next slide, which will look the same as the other professional certification form. There are a couple of differences on the iPad certification form. If you're looking at it now, you can see that it does have a question on this application or this certification form. It says, is the client able to communicate on an amplified or captioning phone? A lot of folks leave this question blank, or they check yes or circle yes. If someone does leave this blank, we're going to call the professional certifier and we're going to have them answer the question, is this person able to use an amplified phone or captioning phone? If the answer is yes, then that individual would not qualify for the iPad. Again, the iPad for deaf or hard of hearing is for video relay phone service. That is the reason we distribute the iPad for deaf and hard of hearing, for them to use it as a phone at home. So that question must be answered. Obviously, if they're unable to use an amplified phone or a captioning phone, then yes, they would qualify for the iPad with the video relay services on the device. For speech, again, those questions that question still must be answered. Also notice that under applicant information on the certifier form, there's a little star, and it says, if shipping address differs from address on application, please include it in the notes section. And we included this on the iPad certifier form because a lot of professional certifiers, specifically speech language pathologists, request that the iPad be sent to them at their place of work so they can set the device up for the individual who will be using it at home. So basically they're getting it ready for the device, getting that AAC app set up for the applicant so that they can take it home and use it at home and won't have to worry about the setup. That is not required, but we do ship the iPad to a different address if it is noted on the form. The last thing that I do want to point out about the certification form for the iPad is that this is for speech language pathologists, but whatever AAC app that they would like to request, they need to write that in the certifier notes section at the bottom of the application. And then that is, if there is no notes at the bottom, we put a standard app on there called Proloquo to go. And that will be what we provide on there. If you would like a different AAC app, please put it in the notes at the bottom. Next slide.
Hey, Casey, I'm gonna briefly say something in regards to product selection. The alert systems and accessories are going to only be for those with hearing challenges and not for those with a speech challenge.
Okay, thank you for that. Awesome. And I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say we've gotten a couple of questions in the chat box that I wanted to just identify for folks. That we had a question about, you know, if a parent or a person needs a device, parent of a person needs a device, what paperwork shows proof of guardianship. So you may go into this a little bit of detail, but we shared that a long form birth certificate that shows both the child's name and the parent's name is the most common, but there may be some other documents that folks can provide. And then also, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to the AAC apps question.
Okay, I'm sorry, Lena, can you repeat the question about AAC apps?
So folks were asking about what type of AAC apps are provided. And a little bit more information about that. I see you put an answer in the chat, but I don't know if you wanted to speak to that.
Yes. So, so the AAC app that we provide, which stands for Alternative Augmentative Communication App, the one that we provide is called Proloquo to go. I did put that in the chat if you're wondering if you would like to refer back to it. But we put that on the device for an AAC app if there is nothing requested. If a speech language pathologist would like to request a different AAC app, they can certainly do that because the applicant gets one AAC app provided. The speech language pathologist does have to specify what app they would like to request. I would like to also add that I do get a lot of questions from SLPs, which is a speech language pathologist. I get a lot of questions saying, well, what app, Casey, would you recommend? And my response is always that, you know, I can give you a contact that would give you some great information about some AAC app options, but I am not going to speak to the AAC app options because we only provide the app that's requested we here at SCEDP do not advise on apps, as we are not speech language pathologists here. So we don't speak to the specific apps, but we do provide the app when requested. And I did see also in the chat, Carrie Munn, who is actually our program manager, made a great point in the chat. I did want to mention real quick, once the iPad is delivered, it does have to be signed for. It will be delivered through UPS, and the device is an expensive device. It's going to be over $1,000. So UPS does require a signature. They are not going to drop it off and leave it at the door. They're going to require a signature. I do believe UPS tries to deliver possibly 3 times. I may be off a little bit on that number. After that, the person would have to go to the UPS store or location to pick it up. So it is important to make sure the address that's listed, someone will be home. And we do supply the tracking number and all of that information as well to the email address listed on the application, so that you can keep up with the tracking information and when someone will need to be home. But again, if the shipping address needs to be different than your home address, just specify that, and we can work that out for you. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. And also, we got a question about getting the contact for the AAC app options. Yes. So you may want to connect with Robin had asked about that.
Yes, I can certainly do that, Robin. And I will do that at the end, if you don't mind. I have a great contact for you.
Perfect. I will move on now. Folks, continue to put questions in the chat. This is great.
Okay. So as I mentioned, a professional certifier does have to sign the form. They have to sign the form stating, yes, this individual does have a hearing or speech challenge. So if you're looking at your screen, there's a list of professional certifiers that we do allow to sign the form. And I've already mentioned an audiologist, your doctor, your regular physician that you see, or a speech language pathologist may also certify the form. And that would be for the speech devices that we provide, like the electrolarynx and the iPad for speech. Okay, next slide. Okay, step 4 would be to get a copy of your ID and phone bill sent in, and then the proof of guardianship if necessary. All right. Okay, so the types of South Carolina IDs that we will accept is a South Carolina driver's license, a South Carolina voter's registration card, or any type of South Carolina ID card that was issued by the South Carolina DMV. A lot of folks will try to submit an ID card from work or some sort of card that is not an official DMV issued ID. We will not accept that. We will have to have one of those 3 items on the screen now. This is our policy, and it's going to be what we require. So it's going to have to be one of those. And please, Landon, if you want to go to the next slide, please notice that the ID card, it can't be expired. It must be valid. Also, the address on the ID must match the address on the application. And I know that Casey Brovan, who spoke a few minutes ago, can speak to this. So she actually processes our applications, and a lot of times we will get applications sent in and they have their address on the application, and then the ID card that they send in has a different address on it. So that will not be approved. All of the information needs to match up. So it's important to make sure that the address on your ID matches the address listed on your application and that it is current, meaning not expired. And I see that Casey has turned her camera on, so she may want to speak to this in this little section.
Yeah, I also just want to add that sometimes people with PO boxes will list their PO box as their address on the application. And we prefer that you list that information in the notes section of the application. Because all of our equipment ships via UPS, we will need your physical address for delivery.
That was a great point. Thank you, Casey. Yes, we do have to have your physical address for delivery of the equipment that you order. UPS will not deliver to a PO box. Thank you, Casey. Next slide, Landon. Okay, so in addition to the South Carolina ID, we will need your proof of phone service. So to qualify for this program, the applicant must have active phone service. This could be landline service or cell phone service, but we are going to have a copy of your current phone bill. We do have an example on the screen for you here, but as you can see, this is the full page. This individual, this is an example of a full page of the phone bill. But the information that we are going to look for on the phone bill is that your phone number is there and your address is there. So this can get a little tricky with folks who have a family member paying for their phone bill, which we absolutely understand and know that happens. And I know Casey can probably speak to that a little bit too, but we're definitely going to make sure that we see your phone number on there, and your list of services is also preferred. So what I suggest is that you send in all of your phone bill. Some people will just take one page and send it in from the phone bill, and that's fine. But if you sent the wrong one, it's going to take longer to get your device because technically your application would still be pending. So send in what you have and we'll take a look at it, is what I always suggest. But definitely make sure that your phone number is listed on there. And again, your phone number needs to match the phone number that you listed on the application. If you just send in a statement like what's pictured on the right with the red circle with a line through it, that will not be accepted. That's just showing an address and a name, and there may be a price of what they owe on there. That is not sufficient. We will need to see your service information so that we can see, oh yes, they are paying for phone service. Next slide. Okay, so in the circumstance that the applicant has a prepaid phone, so they do not get a phone bill, we do accept a receipt from the last time they put minutes on the phone. That must be within the last 30 days. As you can also see, we do have mentioned on this slide, EDP or SCEDP may deny a receipt if it does not meet the requirements. So if we look at the receipt and we can't see where this phone was purchased and we can't see that the phone is listed, we may deny that receipt. But as you can see here on the screen, we have two great examples of what we can accept. The receipt would need to show the phone carrier, the date, and the amount of minutes added. If you may have to visit your local retail store where you bought the phone to get a copy of the receipt. And also the phone number may or may not be on the receipt, but again, EDP will look at each receipt individually, and we will make that call. And as long as we can tell if that receipt is going to meet our requirements or not, we will make that call and we will communicate that with the individual. Next slide. Okay, so proof of guardianship if necessary. So if an applicant is under 18, we would require that proof of guardianship is also sent in. I will say that especially for our iPad, this can be the part that you know, a parent or a guardian doesn't realize that they needed to send in and can delay the process a little bit more. So please understand, if someone is under 18 and does have a guardian, or if they just have a legal guardian, even if they're over 18, we will ask for that proof to be shown. So what we can accept is a birth certificate. And on your screen, you see that that is a long form birth certificate. We do not accept the short cards. We have to have the long form birth certificate. We can also accept power of attorneys. We can accept foster care records or any legal court document stating that you are the guardian. We will accept that. But the most common form is a birth certificate. Next slide. The last step is to send it all in to us. And it does take, next slide, Landon. It does take up to 45 business days to get an iPad in. For phone equipment and all other equipment, it typically takes 1 to 2 weeks, depending on when we process your application. We do, and like I said, the iPad is 45 business days, so that one is a little bit longer. Our contact information is on the screen, and if you are interested in receiving applications for our phone equipment or for the iPad application, please feel free to email me or call me. We will be happy to mail you out some applications, and we do prefer that you send, that you request applications when you get low. I'll mail you more. We do like you to use hard copies, but we have recently decided to put our application for the iPad on our website. So that will be coming hopefully within the next couple of weeks as well. Our application for our phone equipment is on our website currently. And then, like I said, we're hoping to add the iPad one in the coming weeks. It is absolutely fine for you to print those applications off of our website. That is why they are there. But if you would like to request applications from me, I can send you multiple so that you can have some on hand. And they also include our product guide. So that is available to you as well. Please feel free to reach out. And with that, I do believe I'm going to turn it over back over to Landon. If we have any questions, I do believe this is the time that we're going to get to those questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Casey. We are always appreciative of the wealth of knowledge that you are with helping folks to get their equipment and walk through this process, because it can sometimes be intimidating when you don't know where to start. But there are wonderful people here at ORS that are able to help out with that process. So Casey, I'll ask you a question because I don't see any chat box questions, and we'll allow folks to unmute themselves here in a second, but feel free to continue to put questions in the chat box. But my question is, if someone needs help with filling out the application or walking through the process, what is their first step and who do they need to call?
Absolutely. We do assist with filling out the application over the phone. Our office is more than happy to help answer any questions about the application or, any questions or concerns that you may have. Please feel free to call our office. As I've mentioned, the number is on your screen, and we assist with questions or filling it out. We will walk you through it. We can also assist with specific questions that you may have about products. So if you are overwhelmed with selecting a device that's best for you, we would hope that you're referring to your professional certifier or doctor. But again, we are more than happy to help with that as well. Just call our office or email.
Awesome. And their contact information is on the screen, Casey's email, and then the phone numbers as well as the EDP website. I will mention that we had a question earlier about certifiers and about a nurse practitioner being able to sign. And Casey Brovan did answer that, letting folks know that a nurse practitioner and a hearing aid specialist or other professional certifiers that you can use. And Casey, I know you guys have a great program for folks to find professional certifiers, or a resource that folks can find certifiers if they don't know where to start with that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So if you are unsure of a certifier that you could have sign your form, we do have a section on our website, which is also listed on your screen. And the section is called Providers, I do believe. And it lists providers throughout the state of South Carolina that you could go see to have your form certified. Again, it might be easier to go to your regular physician that you see, which would be fine. But we do have a section on our website listing providers that have chosen to be listed on our website.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know that we talked a little bit about the products that were available and all the equipment that you guys offer in our last webinar. And you've mentioned those pieces of equipment throughout. But are you guys adding new equipment? Does someone need to reapply? What if something happens to their equipment? Do they have to fill out that application again? What does that process look like?
Yeah, so thank you for mentioning that. We did do a webinar. It was the second webinar in this series on equipment options. That is available to watch on our YouTube page. So that is a great resource if you have questions about specific product pieces. For our program, if an individual has a problem with their piece of equipment, we do offer replacement or we'll get devices repaired. What we do in that circumstance is that you would need to call us, describe the problem you're having. We'll take a look at that. Hopefully it's something that we can walk you through over the phone to kind of fix, but if we can't, we'll have it repaired for you and we will send you a replacement device. As long as abuse isn't detected in the situation and it's not something that keeps reoccurring, we can certainly get those types of things worked out for you. In the event that, and I know I keep saying this, but Casey could probably attest to this, but if a client has been in our program for a really long time and they have a piece of equipment and it's really old, and then they reapply later down the road, most of the time, we'll be able to pull up their old application and be able to tell, oh, they're in our program, so they don't have to reapply. And so in those circumstances, we can reissue them new equipment or a replacement. If they're reapplying, we'll look at what piece of equipment they're reapplying for and contact them and ask them, did something happen with the old piece? Do you need a replacement? And that kind of thing. We do look into the warranty of the device as well, and then we'll make that decision. But we certainly do work with folks to get exchanges, repairs, replacements. We work with them in all circumstances to have their needs met. That's our ultimate goal.
Awesome. And a question that I had as well is involving with the application or having to refill out an application is, what if someone moves within the state, their address changes, the device moves with them in the state, and they're not leaving the state? Do they need to notify you guys? Do they need to update that application or update that with you?
Yes. So as long as the client stays in the state of South Carolina, all they would need to do is call our office and let us know their address has changed, and we will update it in our system. If they are moving out of state, we will ask that the device be returned because this is a program for South Carolinians. So we would ask that it be returned if they move out of state, but if they move within the state, they could certainly just update their address with us.
And I do want to say, if you're needing repairs or replacements or you're moving out of state, please contact us to get a UPS label. We provide a prepaid UPS label, and that ensures that we're sending it to the correct location instead of you having to purchase your own label.
Awesome. Thank you. And I see that Casey Brovan has been answering some questions in the chat box. First being, how long can you keep the equipment? And the device is yours to keep as long as you continue to live here in South Carolina and still need that device to be able to communicate. And then we got a question about limits on repairs or replacements, and that answer being it really is a case-by-case basis. And there's no really limit that is placed, but there may be some circumstances where the person may not be eligible for a future replacement if abuse is detected. So those are great questions, and continue to put those questions there in the chat box. And so Casey Brovan, if I can ask you a question as well, since you're the one, that are talking with a lot of these people that are calling specifically, processing their applications, what would you say is the one tip that you would give folks whenever they're going through the application process, or the one most common, things that people say, oh, I forgot it, to do that when you're in your time dealing with applications?
Yeah, I would say the most common mistake that I see is an incomplete phone bill. So just making sure, as Casey suggested, to send the entire phone bill. It's fine if you send just one page, but oftentimes I'm reaching back out to you saying, hey, I need this page of the phone bill because you only sent in the statement or whatever. And then similarly, just ensuring that your application address matches the application on your ID.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
And Casey with a C, Casey Sims, another question, how long does this process usually take? Meaning from application being filled out to getting that piece of equipment in the home, how long does that take?
Yeah, so as long as we have all the information we need, we can get an application processed within the same week that we receive it, typically. With the iPad, once we've processed your application and ordered it, it can take up to 45 business days to come in. With all other pieces of equipment, that would be the amplified phones, captioning phones, any alerting device, the electrolarynx, those can take 1 to 2 weeks to come in for the individual. But typically, I mean, we can get those out the same week that we process the application. So those are going to be sent to the individual way sooner. The iPad's going to be what takes longer, and that's going to be 45 business days.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that. And I didn't see any other questions come in, but I want to give folks just a chance to unmute themselves or turn on your video if you are signing to our interpreter. You can feel free to turn on your video or unmute yourself at this time to ask any questions. So I didn't see anyone unmute or turn on their video, but if you do have any future questions, feel free to reach out to Casey at SCEDP. And Casey Sims' email is there on the screen, and that Amplify Life email, I'm pretty sure that Casey Broman checks that inbox as well. So feel free to give them a call or reach out. I wanted to remind folks that the recordings for these webinars are on the SCEDP YouTube channel, and we will send out a link to the recording as well as a copy of the PDF slides available for you to view at a later date. So if you've missed part of the presentation or want to share it with someone else, you can do that at any time. In that follow-up email, we are going to include a link to a survey because we are interested in what we can be doing to help you out even more, whether you're a consumer that's looking for how to use this program in your everyday life to better communicate, or you're a professional that is working in the industry. We want to know what kind of resources, what kind of information can we be helping to share that can be better for you and better your communication every day. So that survey will be coming out. I encourage you to please fill out that very brief survey, and it'll only take a couple of minutes, and we would appreciate it very, very much. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and we look forward to the next webinar that we get to share more information. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.